Did you just put the ring on, or are you in the first few years of your marriage? Welcome to the First Year Marriage Show, a podcast dedicated to helping newlyweds navigate the first few years of marriage. My husband, Marcus, and I will be sharing marriage tips to help you build a strong foundation for your marriage. We believe having a strong foundation is essential to having a happy, healthy, and lasting marriage. We will also be learning from the experiences of awesome married couples who have been where you are today, taking from them lessons to help you build a strong foundation for the lasting marriage you desire. Take a deep breath, relax, learn, and enjoy the show. Welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your co-host, Ashley Kusi. We want to wish you all a very happy new year. We had a really great Christmas, and we hope you guys did as well. I'm going to talk about one of the Christmas gifts that I got from Marcus that we'd like to share with you, our listeners. We started making our goals as a couple, as well as individually for this upcoming year. One of our goals is to read one book together, at least. We usually try to read like 3 or 4, but because this has just been so busy, we decided on one book, and it's actually the Christmas present that I got Marcus. It's called Sheet Music by Kevin Lehman. So that's the one that we're going to start in this new year. We want you to ask yourself this question as we enter into 2015. What is one thing you can do to become a better spouse? What's one thing that you can do yourself to become a better spouse? Think about that, come up with an answer, and then work towards that as one of your goals for this new year. We want to thank all of you who sent us messages about how we can improve this podcast and how it's impacting your marriage. That helps us to better what we do here for you, our listener, and it really encourages us to know that we are helping to impact lives by bringing other married couples' stories to you. For all the show notes for this week's episode, visit firstyearmarriage.com/16. Enjoy this story.
Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's episode of the First Year Marriage Show. I'm your host, Marcus Kusi, and in today's episode, I'll be sharing the first year marriage story of Jim and Teresa Adams. Jim and Teresa have been married for more than 29 years. They have 4 children, and they live in Jackson, Mississippi. Jim is a certified marriage coach, and Teresa is a licensed professional counselor. Together, they co-host the top-ranked podcast on iTunes called the Family Matters First podcast. So Jim and Teresa, thank you guys for being our guests today and deciding to share your experience with our listeners. Can you please tell us a little bit about yourself and how you guys met each other?
Hey, Marcus, thank you guys. Thank you for having us.
Thank you, Marcus.
You're welcome.
So, Teresa, how did we meet?
Well, we met through Jim's cousin. We lived in North Mississippi, and we had to come down to South Mississippi, and we needed a guy to ride with us, and Jim was the guy that rode in the car with us. So we met through his cousin.
So, Jim, after you were in the car, you guys were going through everything. What really attracted you to Teresa? Like, what went through your mind was like, this is the lady I want to settle down with?
Yeah, from the very first time I saw her, I said, this is who I'm going to marry. That was actually the first thing I said. So we spent that whole trip. It was about a 3-hour trip. We drove, and then we stayed with family friends. So, this was like first year of college or last year of high school maybe. So we're 17, 18, 19, somewhere in there. And Marcus, you got to understand, our story's a little fuzzy in the first year because that was like 34 years ago. We dated for 4 years. Then we've been married at this point 29 years. But yeah, from the very first time I saw her, I said, this is who I was going to marry, because you got to understand, I dated with a purpose. So I only had 2 girlfriends in my entire life. Broke up with one, married one. So my whole intent was to get married, and I was looking for a wife.
Wow, that is pretty bold. Yeah, looks like you really knew what you wanted and you knew what you were going for.
Exactly, I did know exactly what I wanted.
So, Teresa, how did you feel when Jim first proposed to you and told you he wanted to spend the rest of his life with you?
Well, I kind of got an idea that, we dated, like I say, we dated a while. So I really liked him. So I was excited. It was nice.
Were you surprised, like really shocked when he told you, like on that particular day?
No, I kind of thought he was going to, because it was like, I think he maybe gave me the ring in our 3rd year. And I kind of was waiting for it, I think.
So after you guys got married, I know with the first year, like there are a lot of adjustments that a lot of couples go through. Some of them is probably adjusting to living together as a married couple, like changing the differences that they have, merging their finances, learning how to merge their living habits. When you guys got married, what are some of the adjustments that you had to make during your first year?
Well, just kind of like in communicating, understanding his language and also him, both of us really growing up. For instance, he wanted to go play basketball every weekend on Saturdays. And I'm thinking, okay, you're married now. Can we not do that every weekend? So that kind of brought about a little conflict between us because I was expecting something different.
Jim, when Teresa expressed her sincere attitude about you not going to play basketball week in and week out, how was your reaction? What did you do to be able to help her know that you enjoy playing basketball and you're willing to put your marriage above the basketball that you're playing?
I played football in college, so I attended college on an athletic scholarship. And after graduation, still was really active. So the weekend basketball was part of my weekend ritual. So when she first brought the idea up that maybe I shouldn't go and play, I thought it was crazy. I thought, what do you mean I want to go play basketball? It's Saturday. That's what you do on Saturdays. But after thinking about it, I realized that it made a lot of sense. I couldn't do the same things I was doing before we got married.
So what did you actually do to be able to change your mindset from dropping or limiting the amount of time you play basketball on the weekends to spending quality time with Teresa?
Well, it was just a matter of really, here's the thing. In a marriage, you shouldn't be trying to figure out who's right as much as you're trying to figure out what's right. So if you can remove yourself from the situation and be objective. So when Teresa tells me something, even in the first year, I would evaluate as to whether or not, objectively speaking, is this, quote unquote, the right thing to do. So once I thought about what she said, I thought, hey, I am married now. I can't hang with the guys all the time. My weekends are not all about me anymore. From what I understood about marriage, what she was saying was consistent with what I understood marriage to be. So therefore, I had no choice but to decrease, and allow our marriage to increase.
And, Marcus, I came to him in a nice way, too, not in a, I guess, angry type way, but in a nice way. I presented that to him. I didn't demand that he stop, but that I was just really wasn't okay with it.
So, Teresa, do you think the way you presented the situation to him really helped him to be able to sit down and analyze what he was doing?
Absolutely. I think in dealing with the male species in general, you have to be careful how you come to your partner.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Like sometimes you might have something that you want to tell your spouse or the person you're married to, but the way you present it is what is going to determine whether or not your spouse is going to accept it or whether they're going to reject it right away.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. So after you guys got married, you had this struggle that you had to go through, like with Jim dropping the amount of time that he spent playing basketball. Was there any adjustment that you, Teresa, you had to go through?
At that time, I wanted to work, and my husband was not, he did not want me to work outside of the home. That was a big issue, but I did stay home for a period of time.
Okay. And with that, like, how did you guys come to a conclusion? Like, how did you come to an agreement so that you could stay home as Jim wanted you to?
Well, again, this was not anything new. We had, in the 4 years we dated, Marcus, you mentioned earlier that I sound like a guy who really knew what I wanted. I had a very specific idea in mind of the person I wanted to marry, and the person I wanted to marry would be a stay-at-home mom. So I treated anyway, the dating process kind of like an interview. So while we were dating, hey, I wasn't smiling when it wasn't funny. I wasn't nodding my head when I wanted to shake my head. In addition, in essence, I guess what I'm trying to say is I didn't do a lot of pretending. So I was very open and upfront. Hey, I'm expecting to marry a woman who will be a stay-at-home mom. So when we got married and Teresa acted like she had forgotten that, she basically said she thought I wasn't serious. I just stuck to what I said. So it wasn't like, see, it would have been harder if we hadn't talked about this. But since I was very open and very upfront, when she said, "Hey, I don't want to stay at home," I'm like, "Yeah, we've already talked about this. That's the plan."
I really like how bold you were. I'm using the word bold again because it looks like you really knew what you wanted, and you just told Teresa, "This is what I want. If you think this is something that you are not, you don't want to do, then let me know so that we can either come to a compromise or decide whether we want to be together or not."
Exactly. See, here's the thing, and obviously, Marcus, I'm not against, in a general sense, women working outside the home. I mean, it's a choice it's a family choice. But for me and for our family, long before I even met Teresa, that this is what I expected. So the person I was dating wanted to be president of the United States. I'm not against her being president of the United States. I'm just not interested in marrying the president of the United States. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. So I mean, hey, so this is why you discuss stuff on the front end. Hey, I plan to be a doctor. Okay, great. The person I'm going to marry is going to be a stay-at-home mom. So I mean, if you want to be a doctor, that's great. But I mean, right now, I'm glad we're talking about this. We don't need to get married.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you are saying because it all boils down to who you want to spend the rest of your life with. Because if you don't know who you want to spend the rest of your life with, once you get married and you start having those conversations, it can end up being a really big issue that could result in you guys having a divorce.
And here's the thing. I know your show is the first year marriage show, but the thing I think about it is before you get to the first year marriage, you might also spend a lot of time thinking about the first week of dating, the first year of dating, the first month of dating. So a lot of times what screws the first year of marriage up is the preparation or the lack thereof before you got married. But maybe that's a different show.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. So how will you guys describe your first year of marriage in 1 or 2 words?
I would say it was a learning experience. That's how I would describe it.
A learning experience. What about you, Teresa?
Definitely a learning experience with really getting to know each other. That might be the best thing, getting to know each other.
Okay. During that first year, after you guys got married, you had different adjustments that you went through. Was there any difficult moment or struggle that you guys encountered, either personally or family-wise?
It was just, we both experienced death. Neither of our parents are living. So within the first year of marriage, both my parents had died. Obviously, that's difficult. But I mean, we moved away. We weren't living there, in the town with them, so to speak. So other than just losing your parents, which is always hard, I mean, that put a bit of a I won't say it put a bit of a strain on our marriage, but it was just obviously difficult to go through. But the biggest adjustment was I didn't really understand a woman. You know what I mean? For example, I had no idea that if you had an argument in the morning before you left work, that would affect whether or not you had sex that evening. I didn't know that. I didn't know that. So we might have an argument before I leave for work. I come home that night. We're putting the kids to bed, whatever. We're getting ready for bed. I'm thinking we're going to be intimate. And Teresa's like, I go like, hey, looks like something's wrong. And she says, you know what's wrong. And I really did know what was wrong because I don't even remember that morning. So there were things like that, Scripture talks about dwelling. It tells husbands to dwell with your wives in an understanding way. And so what I had to learn to do starting that first year was to getting to know my wife. And again, that doesn't mean biting your tongue or not saying stuff. It means understanding her and understanding how to speak a language that she understands.
I really concur with that. I know during our first year also, my wife and I, we found it difficult communicating with each other. And we got to understand that, the root of all the communication issues that you have in marriage is because men and women speak different languages. Like you definitely will say ABC and your spouse might think something else. So being able to communicate really well during that first year helps in setting a really strong foundation for the rest of your marriage.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I know you guys have been through a lot, like losing your dad and Teresa also losing her parents. What was the emotions like and how did that impact your marriage whilst you guys were going through the adjustments?
The thing about it is, I guess, losing, like for me, within the first 6 or 7 months of our marriage, for me, it allowed me to lean more on Teresa and us depend more on each other. Sometimes in-laws, and of course, it's not a good thing that you don't have your parents, but sometimes in-laws can present additional challenges to a marriage. So I'll say this. not having anybody else to really lean on, it brought us closer together.
That's really good to know. I'm glad that you guys, even though you had the struggle that you're encountering, you learned something from it and you were able to apply it in your marriage to be able to grow together as a married couple during that first year.
Exactly. The other thing, a little bit different, our first year of marriage, I know a lot of couples, of course, people are waiting to get married later now, and they're waiting to have children. But another thing, within our first year of marriage, we had twins. I mean, so not one child, but I mean, we went from single people to 4 of us.
Wow. That wasn't easy. How did that impact the first year of marriage that you guys went through?
Well, Teresa?
Well, that was, it was difficult. I had 2 children and was tired a lot. But I guess we worked through it. It was just a time, like you say, of getting to know each other more so, even, with the children there. Getting to know their habits and trying to be parents and then trying to be a couple at the same time, trying to meet all those needs can be very stressful.
But I will say this, Marcus, and again, I'm not prescribing a particular way of doing things. We don't regret starting out with children. I mean, for us, as we look back, if we had to do it over again, other than the fact that we wish we had remained celibate and not had sex until we got married, that's a regret. But in terms of the fact that we had children, we don't feel like, we didn't really get to know each other. We didn't really get to spend any time together. I mean, for us, it was a lot of fun.
That's exciting. So you guys had twins in that first year. Would you say that with the day that you guys knew that you were expecting to have children or knew that you're going to have twins was the exciting moment during that first year for you?
Yeah, it was really exciting, especially, twins. You know how, I don't know if you know this, but, because I'm not a doctor, but you know how, you've heard the expression that, twins kind of run in a family and they kind of skip a generation. Have you heard this?
Yeah. Actually, in my wife's family also, like we had the same thing because on her father's side, she was in line to have twins. And on her mom's side, she was in line to have twins. But we didn't have twins, and we know we are done having kids for now. So I can definitely relate with that expression.
So anyway, when we were dating, Teresa had told me that story, which I'd never heard that before, by the way, about skipping a generation. And, I didn't.
Right. My grandmother had twins.
We had thought, I guess, from the very beginning that, hey, there's a chance we could have twins. And we have a boy and a girl. So, I mean, it was very exciting.
What was the reaction when, Teresa, when you first found out that you were pregnant? And how did you communicate that to Jim?
He was right there with me, but when we were in when I was having a sonogram, and the doctor said that he heard 2 heartbeats, so I was like smiling on one side and really about to cry on the other side. But he was excited. I'm sure, I don't know all he was thinking about, 2 children instead of 1. Oh my gosh! But it was exciting, and like I say, he was right there with us, and we walked through it together.
I know having twins is not easy. It's something that is scary because even with just one baby, it's not easy. So having twins is something scary, and being able to navigate through your first year whilst having twins is something that right. It's not easy at all. And I know you guys sharing your story here will motivate our listeners who are going through a similar situation to be able to know that it's something that is scary, it's exciting, but you'll be able to go through and you'll come out on top and be a success.
Right. I encourage people whenever they face a difficulty not to pull away from each other, but to walk through it together and have that understanding that we're going to make it through this somehow. Yeah.
As you guys have been married for more than 29 years, I know there'll probably be a resource, an event or a program that you guys have attended or used in your marriage that has made a difference. Do you guys want to share 1 or 2 of those for our listeners?
Yeah. Before I get specific, in a generic sense, this is what I would say to the listeners. Marcus, I don't know if you know these statistics. On average, a couple spends about $25,200 on a wedding.
Yeah.
Excluding the honeymoon, and they spend about 250 hours planning the wedding. Okay, now all this is designed to last a few hours. Then they end up spending nothing on the marriage, which is designed to last a lifetime. It's no wonder we have big weddings and little marriages. So from the very beginning, this is what we said: we are married and we have no idea what we're doing. We need to go get trained. So we've been on a 30-year almost quest to get trained and educated. So here's the first thing we did. We went to a Weekend to Remember seminar. It was a Friday evening, all day Saturday, most of Sunday. A weekend seminar for other couples. There were maybe 500, 600, 700 couples there. And here's the funny thing. When we start telling people or friends that we were going to this, it just goes to show you the attitude about getting marriage help. We would say to friends, hey, we got a seminar this weekend. And they would say, oh, we're so sorry. We didn't realize you guys were having marriage trouble. Well, I mean, that doesn't make any sense. I mean, just because you're going to the doctor should not mean you're sick.
Yeah.
You know, just because you take your car in to get it serviced doesn't mean it's about to break down. So that's the first thing we did. We went to that weekend seminar, and from that point on, we were just hooked. I mean, it's like, man, this doesn't have to be this hard. It doesn't have to be as hard as we're making it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Is there any other resource that you guys used during your first or during the 30 years that you guys have been married?
There have been numerous books. I mean, I couldn't even begin, and I can't chronologically, I can't remember, you know, if it was the first year or not, but I'll say this, because some of these books may not have been available during our first year of marriage, but you know, Gary Chapman, The 5 Love Languages, you know, I do have, you know, some must-read books. The 5 Love Languages is one. Emerson and Sarah Eggerichs, Love and Respect would be one. The Power of a Praying Husband, The Power of a Praying Wife, Moving to the Men, Point Man, How a Man Can Lead His Family. That's a must-read book. Another man's book, Raising a Modern Day Knight, Robert Lewis. I guess here's the thing, Marcus. You've got to be lifelong learners. There's more required to get a driver's license than a marriage license. You ever thought about that? I mean, it's crazy. It's crazy. Yeah, you just decide you want to get married and you're married.
Yeah. You have to study that is one and take probably an online test. And then you have to take a first car test, like whether you drive with someone in the car to make sure you can drive on the road. So
exactly.
Yeah.
But you just go get married and don't even talk about parenting. I mean, see, here's the problem with marriage and family in America today. Most of us are doing what we saw growing up. And what a lot of us saw growing up is stuff we shouldn't be doing. You know, so many of us, I'm parenting like my dad parented, or I'm being a husband like I saw my father be a husband. And a lot of times those are really, really horrible examples, but we're doing the same thing.
Yeah, that's definitely true. So during the 30 years that you guys have been married, is there any particular activity that you guys do together to grow as a married couple?
Yes, to answer your question, we do, well, I don't want to say everything together because we do have our space. But we do a lot together, don't you think, T?
Yes, we do a lot together. But to be more specific, Marcus, one thing that I really, when we first got married, what we would do is like the first of the year, we would sit down and we would talk about our goals and our plans. And, you know, and usually we would take a weekend to go and do that. We go maybe to a little, you know, just a little weekend together, just the two of us, and make some plans for the year. And also, we like walking and working out, so we do a little bit of that. We did that together, and we did that definitely when we first got married.
We cook together.
Oh, yeah.
We argue about who gets to cook, not who has to cook.
We enjoy that.
So we cook together. We travel. I mean, we
love
travel
traveling.
Together.
Yes, we definitely travel.
so there. But here's the thing: we both have a commitment to grow this marriage. I mean, from the very first year, I guess I'll just say it again. We understood we had no idea what we were doing, and we understood that we needed to be trained.
I'm glad you guys knew all of this going into your marriage. Before we end our conversation, what is the one lesson or advice that you guys wish you had known before you got married or during the first year that you guys were married?
Wow, that's a good question. I guess I wish I had better understood some communication skills.
Right.
I wish I had better understood
that men and women are different, and that is okay.
That's what I was going to say. The differences between men and women.
Yeah.
I mean, I wish I had better understood that. The thing that used to aggravate me the most in our first year of marriage, and when you think about it, it doesn't make any sense. But the thing that used to aggravate me the most is that Teresa didn't think just like I did.
Yeah. I also experienced the same thing with my wife because I thought we were going to think the same way because we had similar goals, and I naturally thought, we're going to think. But once we got married and we started merging our finances, merging our habits and everything, then I got to know, we are two different people, but we are together as one to work for a better purpose.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Thank you guys for coming on the show today to share your experience. I really appreciate it. What is the best way that our listeners can connect with you? Because I know there are a lot of listeners out there who might want to get in touch with you guys to say, hey, thank you guys for sharing your experience. I'm going through these right now with my wife or my husband, and I'm really glad that you could share your story so I could learn from it and be able to improve what I'm doing right now with my marriage.
Thank you, Marcus. The best way they can connect with us is via our website at familymattersfirst.org. And that's all spelled out as FIRST, but familymattersfirst.org. That's the best way they can, obviously contact us. They can email us. They can actually even leave us a voicemail or an audio message on the website. And of course, what we do, 5 days a week is we tell our story via a podcast where we're the Family Matters First podcast. You mentioned that in the opening, where we're real, we're transparent. We talk about the first year, we talk about the 5th year, we talk about the 25th year, we talk about the 29th year. I mean, we let people really see inside our living room, so to speak, and see this marriage, the mistakes we've made, the successes we've had. But the best way to connect with us is via the website familymattersfirst.org. And I know you mentioned something about resources. There's so many resources on there, everything from, how do you discipline your child? How do you punish your child? How do you talk to your children about sex? Those are, just important, whether it's, this is our little slogan, building righteous relationships, mighty marriages, fantastic families, and prepared parents. So we try to address all 4 things, whether you're dating, engaged, married, building a family, parenting, etc. That's what we try to do at familymattersfirst.org.
Thank you guys for coming on the show today. I really appreciate spending time with you guys and getting to know your story and being able to share it with our listeners.
Right.
Hey, Marcus, thank you so much for having us.
Yeah,
Yes.
thank you guys a lot.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the First Year Marriage Show. To submit a question, feedback, or suggestions for the podcast, visit firstyearmarriage.com/feedback. Apply what you've learned today and build a strong foundation for the happy, healthy, and lasting marriage you desire. Enjoy your marriage. Enjoy your life.